Time for Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by Elevate Women's Health Center in Port Perry and chiropractor Shawna Dingman, Port Perry's only chiropractic and functional health care center focused on women, children, and babies. Don't let health concerns hold you back. Dr. Shawna Dingman, chiropractor and functional health care practitioner since 2000. And we're also joined by Scott Campsall from Makami Kai Karate. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. And good morning, Shawna.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Yeah, you?
You are coming off vacation, so you are great. And there is a lot to be said for that, isn't there?
Oh, my goodness. I feel like I'm still on the vacation high. We're just so relaxed from our vacation still. It's great.
Give it a day.
Yeah.
I said to my boss, he came back on Monday, and I said, so you want to go back already? And he was, oh, yeah, give me another half hour, and then I'll probably want to go back. But, yeah, it does make a difference. And, it's not that kids have been on vacation necessarily, although they have been because of summer. But during the pandemic, they may have not been as active as they had been in the past. And I know that's something you want to address today in kids getting back to more of the normal, the sports activities and things like that, and making sure that they're ready.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure my kids aren't that different from everybody else's kids in the sense that they've spent way more time sitting over the last, 17 months now than any child should sit probably for the rest of their lives. And so now with things opening up, it's great to see. I mean, I have lots of patients who are starting back into soccer and softball and t-ball and things like that. So it's great that everything's opening up, but I think it's really important that we do talk about just activities and proper physical physique and sport and how to make sure that we do it in a really great and safe way for the kids. And I think that there's just that added thing that we have to address this year with them having been in a pandemic for this long.
Well, I know you talk about
not the same.
You talk about posture a lot, and I'm wondering, is that something that you may have heard of or have seen in your practice, that because kids have not been as active and maybe sitting around more than they had, that their posture is off?
Yes, definitely. And we've talked about this before in previous interviews, that I've never seen so many kids being brought in ever in my career with the complaint of musculoskeletal pain, so back pain or upper back pain or neck pain. Kids typically, they don't usually have those kinds of pain that young. Their bodies are just designed to kind of bounce back. The things that people bring kids in for are more functional things like colic or constipation or ear infections or asthma, those kinds of things. But to have so many children being brought in where their parents are saying they have low back pain or their upper back is just so tired and sore all the time, they can't sit in the car for a ride to the cottage and not hurt. So there's definitely a posture aspect going on. And what it really comes down to is that those muscles, we call them the posterior chain muscles, the muscles that go down, all down their back, from the top of their neck to the bottom of their back. They're just not strong enough anymore because they've been sitting in that slouchy position where their whole back kind of slouches and their shoulders roll forward, their heads are coming forward. And it has a really devastating effect on how they feel and on their physiology. So we're going into sport with that problem now. So we have this real imbalance in strength between the front muscles and the back muscles. And so one of the things I'm really encouraging parents to do is to just really work, whether your child is in sport or not, work on those core muscles now. Let's get them back to being straighter and to having the strength all in and around their core so that they can function in anything more normally.
Are there exercises that are kind of common exercises that you could do to get you onto that path?
Yeah, I mean, if you're an adult, we often talk about doing things like rows and planks and those kinds of things, which for a kid, that's not very fun. So what Craig and I have done is we've actually put together a video of 11 really fun core exercises that kids can try. They're the kinds of things that Scott probably does in the dojo when he's warming up kids or when he's working on strength with kids. They're things that are fun for them, but they don't realize that what they're actually doing is strengthening their body. So I have that on my website and my YouTube page. Actually, if you go to my Facebook page, Elevate Women's Health, I just put it back up in yesterday's post. So if you want to take a look at it, you can just click on the link and it'll take you right to the YouTube video there.
So, Scott, are you seeing any results of the fact that kids had been off for so long?
Yeah, well, our kids were a little different in the sense that we were online and we were doing online classes so they could train from home. But even then, there's spatial awareness that we have to get back. Like even we're allowed contact now just under regulations. So they're allowed to work with partners. And we're already noticing that they just don't have because they've been socially distanced for so long that now they've got to reestablish their distance from a partner. And then even just the tactile feeling of basically having contact with someone too. But a lot of my students, even the adults, aren't used to that anymore. So we did a lot of drills right from the beginning where we said, okay, get used to moving in, getting closer, and then moving back out. And we do that safely. And but I also found not only core, like definitely core strength, but leg strength, where we push long stances or deep stances with students when they're in the dojo, but when they're home, if they go too wide or too long, then they bounce into a couch when they're trying to do some of their techniques and their forms. So a lot of them just modified everything so much so that now when they've got the space, now they have to get used to deeper stances and working those leg muscles again too. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of atrophy that's been happening in like I said, not just kids, but adults too.
Well, Shawna, is that something too that would be a concern? And that's an interesting aspect. I wouldn't have thought about that, but spatially, that all of a sudden there's this empty, this huge, vast area that you can run. And, as a kid, it's go from 0 to 60 as quickly as you can. And suddenly it's like, oh, what is that? I've never felt that before.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a really good component to talk about. And balance is the other thing too. When you're not used to moving in all those different ways all the time, even balance goes off. So, a lot of parents are talking about they're bringing their kids in and saying, they're really clumsy. They walk through a door frame and they're running into walls all the time. And a big part of that, it's spatial awareness and it's balance. So getting all of these things back on track again is really important. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about is just the idea of warming them up before a sport. And again, with the amount of inactivity they've had, warming up is a really, really important aspect of physical activity now. Making sure that the muscles are ready for the activity that they're about to do, priming it, getting that neuromuscular patterning just kind of firing before they actually start into their sport. And I'm sure most coaches do that. I know, Scott, in the dojo, whenever we're starting a class, there's always a warm-up. But if your child is in a sport where the coach isn't warming up I think that the onus becomes on the parents. And I think it's an assumed thing that the coaches or the sport organization assumes that the parent knows that they need to warm up their child before a sport, but warming up is really important. And it doesn't have to be super duper. It's movement. It's getting all the different parts of the limbs, the wrists, the elbows, the shoulders, the knees, the ankles, the legs, the back, getting all those things moving before they start, and then stretching after, which is something kids never want to do. Actually, adults don't even want to stretch. So I don't blame the kids for not wanting to stretch, but stretching after a sport is really important as well. It just helps the body know, okay, now we're going into cool down mode. It's like, coasting. After you've been going up a long hill, for example, on a bike, it just gives the body a chance to reset and to know how to rest properly instead of just going out cold.
And let my lactic acid know to go somewhere else.
Exactly.
It's interesting. In our business, there used to be a sort of a thought process on warm-up, as we were sort of teaching kids that it was important to warm up so when they got older and they needed to warm up, then that was already something that was established in their training regimen, that they realized, okay, this is an important thing, we better do it. And really, quite honestly, at that time, kids were sort of like little rubber bands, just go. And normally they were playing outside, normally they were doing stuff, and now it's like what Shawna said, no, that's important right now because those muscles haven't been doing anything really engaging for a long time. So yeah, now we're doing exactly what Shawna's saying, we're pushing the warm-up a lot more. We found, I used to teach a combatives course for Sinclair Secondary down in Whitby, and they were bringing me in to teach martial arts as a program for one of their classes because they started realizing that a lot of the movements that we do are going and transcending into other sports. So where, we do certain drills where we're strengthening up legs, so we're doing kicks. Well, okay, well, if you're playing soccer, you're going to be kicking all the time. Or even just where we're talking about spatial awareness, now you need to be aware for that for hockey. So our activity seems to transcend into other areas, but I would even go one step further and say we notice the same thing. We get a little kid that comes in, and one of the first things I ask him is, are you doing any other activities other than now karate? And you can see a big difference between the kids that aren't doing activities and the ones that are, even if all they're doing is swimming lessons, or I should probably put that down, but it's not what I would consider to be a team sport or something like that, unless you're like on swim club or something like that. But it's anything that has them active, anything that has them off video games. And I'm not trying to put down video games, but as long as they're moving around and they're doing stuff, then we've noticed that's a huge difference. Some of them are aware more of their right and their left side, or some of them, again, just aware of how close they need to be to somebody in order to do stuff. And activity is definitely a big help. And so for them to miss out on this, it's totally a game changer now on how we train.
Well, and you guys hit the key points that it is a warm up. We used to say, it's habit. I almost said, of course, there should be stretching before. No. Stretching comes after warm up, and it's important to use that word because it is not stretching at the beginning.
I trained with a guy, Bill Wallace, and they call him Superfoot because I think he's in his 70s now, and he's still super flexible. And I did one of his stretching classes. A lot of people believe they should stretch in the morning because that's just for some reason got ingrained in everybody. He says, I stretch at night. He says, those muscles are a lot warmer now that I've been doing stuff all day.
Yeah, I think I like to use the term flexibility. So if you're doing something in the morning as opposed to just stretching, it should be active flexibility if you're going to do it, which has a component of it's moving. You're lengthening the muscle while you're moving, but that's the important part is that the muscle is moving and it's warmed up. But you're right, stretching as a nighttime thing is much more important than stretching in the morning. I mean, in the morning, it's actually, I would say it's more dangerous to stretch when you're just, you get up, roll out of bed and start stretching. Your body isn't ready for it. Your discs aren't ready for it. Your body has to warm up before you do any stretching. Getting up some mornings is dangerous for me, so there are some of those days. Listen, Shawna, a lot of great information, and if someone is interested, and sometimes you get into a situation and you're not quite sure, obviously it's something you should watch your kids and you see them struggling a bit. Not a bad idea to come and talk to somebody like yourself. If they are interested, how can they do that? They can visit our website, elevatewomenshealth.ca. They can call us at 647-995-1251. They can find us on Instagram and Facebook. We are right in the heart of downtown Port Perry. There's parking all over the place. It's easy to get to. And, I really recommend if you have never had your child's spine checked, make sure, we've got sports starting, we've got school starting soon. Make sure you get your child's spine checked, just the way you would get their eyes checked and their teeth checked. It holds their whole nervous system. So we want to make sure that it's balanced and it's working as well as it possibly can. Great information once again. Shawna, thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for having me. Scott, thank you for being had. Scott, thanks again. I see it coming every time they do it. Every time they say, thanks for having me, here we go. I do it on purpose. I do for it. But you know how I didn't do it one time, and the person, you could hear this long pause, like, you didn't say it. So now it becomes a thing. So now I've got to do it, It's nice you have a patent. You got a trademark. That's great. Yeah, we'll try and trademark it. I'm not sure that's going to be successful, but we will try. Guys, thanks for your time this morning. Thank you. Thanks, Shawna. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. That is Shawna Dingman again. Elevate Women's Health.